Hello and welcome once again to the Blether with me, William.
And with me, Gary. It's great to be back with you all again, and thanks to Neil Galloway, who joined us last month to talk about the new recording about to be released by the RSCDS for the new Book of Dances.
Indeed, yes, book 54 no less. And it's accompanying recording by Neil and his Scottish dance band. And that's going to be available next month.
Yes, absolutely, but you can pre-order it, so make sure you go onto the website and do that. But we're staying with music this month, aren't we, William? And but we're looking particularly at the music of the fiddle.
Yeah, and the gentleman you can see in your screen is a giveaway because he's got one tucked under his arm. So, yeah, Scotland has a very rich heritage of fiddle music, as we all know, and indeed players. And for a blether with us this month, we are thrilled, absolutely thrilled, to welcome one of the finest fiddlers of his generation, Gary.
Yeah, absolutely. And to talk about his career and to look back at one of the great fiddlers and composers of the past, and in particular James Scott Skinner, it's a huge pleasure to welcome Dr. Paul Anderson MBE to the Blether. Welcome, Paul.
Hi, Gary. William, nice to see you. It's a pleasure to do this, especially, I mean, you've got folk from all over the world, and you may need a translator for me, I'm afraid.
It's all right. Well, when listen, folks, when Paul and Gary get going, just put something in the comment or something, and I'll try and deal with it for you if I can. But I'll try and
Yeah,
keep it under control. So yeah,
it's just as well we've got you as a translator here, William, I think,
absolutely.
because we could slip a little bit, Paul.
All right. Well, I mean, you just didn't want to get us at the bar at the Keith Folk Festival. That's all I'll say. There'll be no barriers to the broad Doric if we were found there.
Yeah,
But Paul,
absolutely.
you're very much at home. I mean, literally at home. This is where it all started for you in that very house you're in tonight.
Aye, well, well, this is my living room, which so I'm literally at home, about a mile from Tarland, which is just in the edge of the Cairngorms National Park in Aberdeenshire, and this is actually the house that my granny and granda bid in because we're a dairy farm, and spent a lot of time here, and actually that's where I found this fiddle under a spare bed when I was about five. So that really got me going and led in turn to my brother and my sister learning to play. And then I'd had a cousin started playing the fiddle, and her brother Gary started playing the accordion. And then we're on to kind of nieces and things now are also playing. And of course my wife Shona is a fiddle player as well as a singer. So it's in the bleed, I suppose. I mean the fiddle was there because my granny had a brother and sister that played. Bob was in the Gordons during the war, and their uncle Maxwell, he played the fiddle as well. He was killed at Ypres, and it goes right back to Peter Milne, who was a great fiddler in his day, taught the young James Scott Skinner. So Peter was a big influence on fiddlers in the northeast in his time. He was born in 1824, and so he gets credited with teaching the young Skinner how to play strathspeys and reels and things. So a fair boy, like.
So listen, that fiddle is the one that you found as a wee boy under the bed in your grandparents' house. Is that right? And you're still
It
that's the one
is.
you're still playing today.
It's the very same. I mean, it was. Okay, well, I will eat up by the time if I get onto it. But it was. My granny wanted a fiddle during the war because Bob was a war with the Gordon Highlanders, and the family are Kent about it. There was one of them. He was a butcher in Arbroath. He was in the pub, and a money came in, basically selling a fiddle to buy whiskey. And so he bought the fiddle, and my granny bought it off of him for 10 shillings. And it would have been used now and again, but eventually it just ended up under the spare bed in the box bedroom that Darby had the glory hole. And it was just it had a skylight window, a chest of drawers, and a queen size bed. And then under it was boxed of postcards and Christmas cards and suitcases and an interesting shaped box. And that really it fired up my imagination. I really took to it. It was just a thing of fascination. So I started when I was 9, a few years later at the local school where my Andy Linklater.
Brilliant. And as you say, Paul, it's a family affair. It's in the blood. Brother and sister and everybody else in the family playing as well. It must have been great to grow up in that kind of environment with all of that music going on, and the groups that you were part of as well, going abroad and touring about with them as well.
Well, I mean, personally, I loved music. I spent a lot of time listening to. It was me and my dad's LPs. Mum had a lot of 60s singles, But Dad he loved the Corries, and files was Bobby McLeod, kind of for a dance audience that would be a big name. Folk like Hector McAndrew was another evening, and Johnny Cash, and I loved all that sort of stuff. And then as I got a wee bit older and got playing. I mean, it went from being brought up in a firm, the Healing Show and Turf Show, kind of Turra and Keith they were the big days of the year. But once I started the fiddle and we started going to the fiddle competitions and festivals, that kind of replaced it for me. The music was just it was a whole world and a pleasant, sociable thing. It's not just the music. I mean, it'll be the same for the dancers. I'm sure that it's not just the actual dancing. It's the music. It's the camaraderie, the friendships, and it's a worldwide thing. I mean, our friends are all over the place just because we've got such a lot in common. Music is really a universal language. So it's been a kind of joy in my life, really, the music, but especially growing up with the Scottish music. I got into other things as I got older, and I think I even went to see Metallica at one point and Status Quo. But since I've gotten older, I've been very much drawn back to the very traditional playing, and that's what I love. So that's what I play when I go Scottish traditional fiddle music.
Yeah, but Paul, our dancers will recognise that absolutely. The camaraderie, the feeling of family, getting together. You know, there's an old saying: when words fail us, music and dance speaks. You know, and it really does. And the world it's in today, if everybody sang and danced, what a difference it would be to the world. You know, just fantastic. So, I mean, our members will recognise that feeling of getting together. Not just the dancing, but getting together. I mean, so we're going to go on to Scott Skinner tonight, but I mean that fiddle, I'm just itching to hear it, Gary. I don't know about you.
Oh, definitely.
Have
Yeah,
you got a wee tune you can get started with? Or?
So maybe the most appropriate thing would be play a tune by James Scott Skinner. So this would be something that'd be very familiar to a lot of your dancers. It's his Strathspey, the Laird of Drumblair.
Fabulous, great. Ah, there we are, smashing. Wasn't that great, Gary? The Laird.
Oh, absolutely brilliant. Yeah. It's great to hear that fiddle and the sound, Paul. And you're mentioning earlier about, going to see Metallica and things like that in the big bands. I remember coming to see you as a young kid, in the Keith Longmore Hall, and you were in a concert with Jim Reid the late Jim Reid from Dundee. And I just remember sitting in that concert thinking, these two are just brilliant.
Well, I think they did audition Jim for Metallica, but he told too many funny stories between the songs. So, but I kind of was someone else. I like that sorts of music. I mean, I've kind of grown out of that a bit now, but so I just love music generally. But no, yeah, that was certainly the late 90s. Because I think I organised that myself, and we used to be guests at the Keith Folk Festival a lot, so there was a lot of familiar faces, and it was a good. I do mean it was a good night with a few other folk there as well, and it's getting to be a bit of a struggle to mind than it was because it's quite a few years ago now.
It is quite a few years ago.
Yeah, I remember the very night actually.
Yeah. So our dancers, Paul, will know Scott Skinner as well. He was self-styled Strathspey King, wasn't he? He kind of gave himself that title, didn't he? Tell us a wee bit about Scott Skinner and his background into all this music.
Well, I'll speak about the title. That that came about because I think it was the Aberdeen Journal, which later became the Press and Journal, and there was a review of one of his concerts, and there was quite a lot of these published in the various newspapers because he was such a big name at the height of his fame that Scott Skinner coming to the town was something that was newsworthy. And somebody had reported and published that surely he was the king of Strathspey players. And he thought, oh, that's splendid. And so he then started to promote himself as the Strathspey king thereafter, and successful bit of promotion because folks still call him that to this day.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a couple of years' time, it'll be the centenary of his death, and folk are still talking about him as the Strathspey king. So he left a fair legacy. I mean, he was born in Banchory on the River Dee in 1843. Musical family. His father died when he was 18 months old, but he had been a dancing master for a time. His older brother Sandy gave him his first lessons. He then started going to Peter Milne, the Tarlin minstrel, and he was like an apprentice. Peter would play the tunes, and James would accompany on the cello, kind of vamp on the cello, and they would walk about to our D-side and Strathdown to these country dances. He then joined a juvenile group called Dr Mark's Little Men for about 6 years, I think, and he played in over 600 towns in Britain and Ireland when he did that. And when he came back for that, he got sick of it and decided he wanted to go home. And they went to Aberdeen and he just disappeared. He never went back. He met up with Peter and discussed a career. And at that point, it was suggested he could become a dancing master. And so the best known man at the time was a Professor William Scott, and he come from Stonywood, just outside Aberdeen. And Scott took him on as a pupil, and he taught him about not just dancing, but deportment and how to kind of fitness and stuff like that. He taught him all the dances, the steps, the repertoire, and how you put it across. So he came out of that as a fully fledged dancing master. And that was really what his first career was. And he felt so much about Professor Scott that he took Scott as his middle name. So that was a kind of homage to his dancing master that taught him and gave him his first break. And that's where he started. He was a dancing master long before he was ever a concert violinist.
So here we are. I mean, our members will know about dancing masters, was he a typical dancing master? Did he teach the dancing and play the fiddle while he was teaching at the same time? Is that what he did?
He was. That's something that was mentioned that he could, because it was Scottish country dancing, but Highland dancing as well. But the kind of social dancing, he could do the Highland fling and play for it at the same time. So he would have his fiddle in his hand, demonstrate the steps, and then he would play the repertoire while he was demonstrating the steps. So I mean, you can go right back to Robert Burns's time. You can have got that Greg fiddle. Greg was the dancing master. Whether Robert actually ever played it or knows it, you can debate about. But certainly that was very much his style. And so Skinner would have been very much in that kind of school. And he set up schools all over the north of Scotland. He set one up in Blether and got to the notice of Queen Victoria, and he was employed to teach the tenants dancing, and he took part at some of the balls at Balmoral, and it was a plum booking because he was able to buy a horse and gig at that point, because you've got that kind of commission, you're noticed, and you start picking up other society events as well. So he set up classes all the way to the north of Scotland, right up to Wick. So places like Nairn, Forres, Invergordon, you can right up the coast, he right for kind of Elgin and D-side. So a lot of travelling. I mean, he was all over the country, but making a name for himself. And so dancing was a big part of that. Even for he decided he was stopping that to become a concert violinist. But he had his own concert parties. He very much always had dancing as part of the concert party. So it was an important thing. He certainly recognised that kind of link. It wasn't just being a soloist. Dance was part of that. It was interlinked. You can, if you play the Strathspey or the jig, you if you play for it properly, you're doing the right thing. You need to understand the dance before you can execute the tune.
Yeah, Gary, I think we'll put Paul on the spot here because you have some favourite dances from up your way, I know. But Paul did mention he learned deportment when he was. I'll explain that to you someday, Gary. Okay,
Please do.
I'll explain deportment to you. It's something to do with how you stand. Okay.
All right. Okay. You read your manual, you'll find
That's
it.
all you need to know. Yeah, you'll master it someday. So go on, Gary. You choose a dance and let's have a wee tune for Paul.
Well, you see, I was going to ask Paul, what would have been some of the dances or the tunes that would have been played by Skinner at that time? And that gets me looking really silly and picking the wrong dance.
Well, it's certainly one. I mean, definitely the 8 some reel was one, but they were doing quadrilles and quadrille lancers. Is some of the things that I mentioned. I mean, I've got a list here that's written doing it's some of his collections because he published over 700 tunes, but he also did things like Beauties of the Ballroom. He had A Guide to Fashionable Dancing, A Guide to Bowen, the Scottish violinist, The People's Ballroom Guide. With regards to tunes, I mean, he played a lot of stuff like, I mean, the kind of favourites he would have played, and he probably would have played them for dancing as well, was things like the Real Tullach, which has been a very popular tune. Tullach Goran was another, but I don't know what tunes he actually played for certain dances, and I ken that's important. Now, I've never really made my living as somebody who plays for Scottish country dancing, but I have done it enough to ken that the lead tunes are quite important for a lot of folk. But if you're going to play, let's say the Dashing White Sergeant, you're expected to play that at the start, and it cues up the dancers. But I'm not entirely sure what repertoire he matched with some of the dances. The Floors of Edinburgh would have been one of them.
William's favourite dance, Paul?
My favourite dance?
Is it? Well, I can certainly play that for you.
Oh, well, let's have that.
Then.
The first dance I ever learned, so that would be great. Let's have Paul Anderson and the Flowers of Edinburgh. Here we go. Oh, there we are. Thanks for that, Paul. Gary, there you go.
I'll take you back.
Oh, what? To a wee boy of 5 years old. Yeah. Try to get rid
It's
of
a great, it's a great tune. A lot of these old tunes, you can, they go in and out of fashion, but they're never running out of brilliant. You can write modern tunes, but I wish I'd written stuff like that.
So, Paul, I found a wee quote here from the archive. From himself, from Skinner. When I returned from America, I made up my mind on 2 points. Firstly, I decided to have done with the dancing. As a solo violinist, I decided to stand or fall. Secondly, I decided to make the kilt my platform dress. With the exception of myself, there was no Scottish violinist of any eminence at this time. Success happily crowned my endeavours, and with its realisation, I bitterly resented the many years I had wasted as a country dancing master.
Well, yeah.
I know the feeling, Gary. No, we don't. No.
Well, my opinion of that is he would have been glad of that for money a year because that was his bread and butter. But if it happened is he got a glimpse of the kind of adulation on the concert stage because didn't
he perform with folk like Harry Lauder?
He did. I mean that's later in his career, and Harry Lauder Skinner would have been bankrupt several times. Harry Lauder was a businessman as well, very much a concert hall musician who was one of the best kept concert hall vaudeville entertainers, not just in the UK but in America as well. He did 25 tours in America. Yeah. He was pals with Charlie Chaplin, so Skinner was certainly in his concert party, and when they had his funeral, Sir Harry Lauder was the main mourner at that funeral.
Okay.
And it's believed because he had a lot of money when he died, Skinner, and there was a fairly modest headstone erected. And a lot of his admirers thought it wasn't appropriate for the Spey King. And so there was a public subscription going up, and the biggest part of that was paid for by Harry Lauder.
Okay.
Interesting. So I think what's great as well is we're mentioning there about some of the tunes that he would have played for dancing, but he composed a huge amount of tunes that are still used now in more modern dances compared to the Skinner's time. Folk like John Drury from Aberdeen, we had two folk from Canada on a couple of episodes ago, Paul, where they're doing a project to catalogue all of John Drury's dances. But he used a lot of Scott Skinner's tunes for as lead tunes for the dances that he composed. Things like Flower of the Quern, for instance, is one of the tunes. So I think it's great that there's still new dances being devised, but using the old tunes, which often are the best, I think.
I think that it's fair to say that there's a purity to them, because actually by Skinner's time he was influenced by classical and music hall. You could go back to Neil Gow and you think, oh, that's more pure, but actually that's about the time of the Baroque period, and folk like him and folk like William Marshall, one of our greatest composers as well, they were influenced by continental music as well, and they've got a sense of this oldness, a bit more traditional sounding. And I think they had an inherent understanding of the requirements of the rhythms of the dance. And some of these old tunes, I think, do fit in maybe a bit better. And then again, it's just a matter of taste. I tend to like some of the older stuff, just generally speaking.
I have to say, we were talking about our favourite John Drury dance on that episode, and I said it was available on Accord. And then I remembered the Flower of the Quern, which is actually one of my other favourite John Drury dances. But I think the tune goes, it's such a great tune to go with that dance as well. And I don't know if you fancy giving us a wee blast of Flower of the Quern.
I certainly would. I mean, I have played this as a dance tune, but of course, as somebody started playing with the Banchory Spey and Real, it was played as a slow air, which is kind of it was written as. But do you want it as a slow air or do you want it as a dance tune?
I think
I could do both, actually.
Go for both, and then that just shows us that are less musically eared the difference between the kind of slow air and the Spey style.
Well, I mean, it's a slow air. You don't have to worry about tempo. You can pull and push the tempo, and you phrase it like a singer and try and play with a bit of emotion. But kind of with the dancing, you've got to be pretty strict. So it's a bit more up tempo, because if you play it like a slow air, you'll never get to the end of the tune. So we'll start with the slow air, and then we'll play it more up tempo. As I can remember playing it a while ago now, but we'll do our best anyway.
Great stuff. So here is the Flower of the Quern. Great stuff. Lovely. You enjoy that, Gary?
See, that's northeast music for you, William. Northeast of Scotland music at its best. What more can you ask for?
Yeah, Paul doesn't understand what we're going on about here, but never mind. It's all right. So,
He's southern, Paul. He's southern.
the deep south. Yeah, exactly. What I was going to say, Paul, you're involved in if we can move on to this now, a scheme to celebrate James Scott Skinner up your way. Can you fill us in on what's actually going to be happening?
Aye, well, I mean, there are two or three things in his hometown of Banchory that you would notice that celebrate his name. There's a Scott Skinner Square, and there's a kind of sign above the entrance says Scott Skinner Square, and there's a notice board. There's a big information plaque on the high street that is close to where he was born. It's kind of back a bit. The house isn't there anymore. In fact, Skinner was still alive and the house wasn't there. It had been demolished. So there's that. And then there's a Scott Skinner's pub. And the Scott Skinner's pub actually used to be a farmhouse back in Skinner's day. And he was friendly with the farmer he used to visit. But I'd been to Ireland a few times and seen various, there was like Seamus Ennis and Willie Clancy are kind of celebrated Irish pipers, but not nearly as influential as Scott Skinner was. And I'm looking at them, they've got bronze statues in the high street, and I'm thinking, that's terrible. Not because they are being celebrated, but there should be something like that in Banchory for Skinner. And then not long after that, they got the Neil Gow statue erected in Burnham, aside Dunkeld. And I thought, definitely need to have a statue. So I started up a wee campaign, the Strathspey King Memorial Fund, to start raising money. But it's quite a time-consuming thing. If you're speaking about life-size bronzes, it's a lot of money. So we got together with some folk from Banchory Rotary, and so the fundraising's under their umbrella. Just in case folk think I'm keeping it in a box under the bed, a biscuit box or something. So we did the biscuits out first, though. So, but we've got a proper constitution, we've got charitable status, we've got office bearers, so that's been a big help. So we're looking at it costing about 50,000. That's a reality. It's not a cheap ambition to get something like that, but we're over halfway there now, and that's taken us about 3 years. So we've got a series of events. I mean, we've got some of the local games, fundraising concerts, and we've got collection boxes, and little by little we get there. There's folk have donated money, and so if one of your listeners are interested in celebrating one of our influential figures and dancing masters, we have a fund. It's a GoFundMe page. It's the Strathspey King Memorial Fund, and we can send you a link for that, and folks should be able to find it. And so we're getting there, but yeah, it's the statue's actually made, or the clay mold is made, I should say, and the molds have been taken off of that. So we are at the stage where we're about ready to cast it. So the ambition is, on the anniversary of his death, the centenary of his death in 1927. So 2 years' time will be when it's unveiled, and so we hope to have a big weekend of Skinner events. Right. Hopefully including some dancing as well. But I mean, we had a celebration of the 170th anniversary of his death a few years ago, and part of the concert we featured the dancing because that was a big part of his career. So so that will certainly be reflected in the unveiling.
I mean, we'll definitely put in the link into the description here, Paul, so that folk can donate if they feel they can. And I know that I think it was a Banchory group of dancers had a fundraising dance just fairly recently as well, a Scottish country dance. The proceeds went to this fund as well, which is great to see the community coming together to celebrate Skinner and the impact that he's had in the legacy. And I think we can maybe show some of the pictures of where you're at the moment with the statue. Is that right?
Well, the pictures you can see, I think, You'll see exactly how he looks. I mean, it's awful like him, I have to say. I mean, I find that quite amazing how he's captured his likeness. I think it's got his character. The sculptor's a chap called David Anand, and he actually, I think, he did the Jimmy Shand statue, he did the Neil Gow statue, he's done Mary Queen of Scots, Jim Clark, the racing driver, and he did the Aberdeen Angus Bull statue up in Alford. So, fantastic job, actually. It's going to look fantastic in Banchory when we eventually get it up.
That's amazing.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And that's life size, obviously. Was he a very big fella?
It's very personal, but he was, I think he was probably about 5'4" or 5'5". So it's often said he was a fiery wee money, and I think but he was at this juvenile orchestra. They used to make fun of him because he was little, and they used to make him wear a kilt because he was Scottish, and that was part of his gimmick. But he frequently got in fisticuffs with some of the bigger loons that called him porridge legs, and he wasn't having it. So I think he definitely a bit of a temper on him when it needed to be. But other folks said he was a fantastic character. He'd obviously a good personality, but he'd certainly did the Supper Fools. I've one concert, supposedly, he stopped in the middle because folk were tapping their feet too much. And I would be encouraged by that, but he stopped him, and he says, I refuse to cast my pearls before swine, and he marched up.
Quite right. Some sympathy with that on the dance floor, but that's another day, I can tell you.
Did I get Williams started, Paul? We'll be here all night.
Well, that's been great. But listen, hey, it's amazing how time catches up with us, Gary. But there we are. Scott Skinner, to our dancers, is a very, very, very important musician, giving us those great strathspeys, great tunes that we all dance to. And it's been great having Paul tonight to fill us in on a bit of the background to the man. I mean, we don't need to into, but personally, his life was really quite complicated, wasn't it? It was. He was a complicated character in many ways, as many of the great artists and musicians were over history. A lot of these great classical composers, for daily life, it was really difficult for them. It's interesting that, actually.
He was. It's not an easy choice to make traditional music your livelihood, but you could certainly make a really good film about his life, because he'd highs and lows. I mean, there's the portraits done of him. He toured North America. Actually, he's certainly the first Scotsman to be recorded commercially. But for Edison came up with the technology, the early wax cylinders. They have records of him being a violinist that was recorded there right at the beginning. He might be the first violinist that was ever recorded, but the recordings don't exist. But he certainly, when the commercial recordings start being made available, he was right at the beginning. And that's part of what made him a name that's remembered, because his 78s especially went all over the world. They were influential in Cape Breton. They were desperate for anything Scottish. Ireland, folk like Coleman and Johnny Docherty were great admirers. His music's very well known in Donegal, which has got a very distinctive musical style and their own dances. But if you speak to folk in Ireland, the one fiddler that most Irish fiddlers will ken is Scott Skinner. It's quite interesting. I suppose it's that modern era. He was a very visible figure, and he actually went to Ireland. He won Highland dancing classes at Bray, just outside Dublin. Quite interesting that he would go to Dublin to do Highland dancing contests, but that was part of his life as well. He entered the dancing.
Yeah, amazing.
And funny you mentioned a film there, Paul, because in every episode we ask for folk to send in their questions or their comments, and we actually had an email from Victoria Lewis in Canada.
What's right?
Yes, so Victoria is one of our members over in Canada, and she is a filmmaker and was over here last year, I think, filming you near Balmoral.
Aye, well, we were up in Braemar and up in Crathy, and then we filmed a bit of a session at the Aberdeen Arms at Tarlin, so we were all over the place, heading up hills, and I played Tulloch Gorham for half an hour straight. Well, they got the shots, but No, lovely folk. It's actually the film. It's been in the pipeline for a while, and it's about different styles of fiddle music and what it means culturally in the Cape Breton. I think the Natalie McMaster is featured. They've got somebody, Bruce Molsky, kind of bluegrass style player, amazing player. And that Michael Cleveland, who's a force of nature, just incredible player. But she felt that they would like to hear some Scottish fiddle in that. I suppose being a Scottish country dancer, that's something that she would want to reflect. There's a James Kelly, Irish fiddler. So it's really kind of like around that North Atlantic area. It's covering a lot of different styles. So I look forward to seeing it because it's quite an interesting thing to be part of. And the wee bits I've seen look really, really beautiful, actually. And whether they caught my good side, I'm never sure. But we'll see.
I'm saying nothing about whether you've got one or not. But yeah, she was saying that it's going to be broadcast on PBS stations across the world, and they're actually hoping to premiere it at the Edinburgh Film Festival.
All right.
So something for us all to look out for in the near future. Seeing
sounds like a boys' night out, I think.
Yeah, we could meet up in Edinburgh.
Day and ate some real in front of the red carpet or something like that. That would be quite good fun, wouldn't it?
Oh, well, look, yes, time's caught up with us,
It
unfortunately.
has, yeah.
But thanks for that, and we'll get you to play us out if you wouldn't mind. But before we do that, Gary, next month, this is when Gary gets.
Yes.
I'm away to make a cup of tea while he does this.
I get very excited, Paul, about who's coming on next because we always have such great guests like yourself. And I'm delighted to say that we're going to have Robert and Mike from Scots on the Rocks in Sydney, Australia.
Going down under.
They run a fantastic group there, part of the group that run Scots on the Rocks, and they also have Chaotic Caileys. So there's a teaser if ever you've heard one, to find out what the Chaotic Caileys are in Sydney, Australia. Very popular. So yeah, it'll be great to have Robert and Mike on the Blether next month to share their experiences about how they do it down under.
And how they go about recruiting, because the Chaotic Caileys is all part of recruiting to the country dancing and so on. Yeah. So yeah, it'll be great to see them. And g'day to all our friends in Australia at the moment, whatever time of day you're watching this, I don't know.
But at least you've got into the lingo now, William.
Oh, what, you've no idea. Anyway, Paul, thank you so much for coming on, Dr. Paul Anderson
MBE.
Yes, absolutely amazing. Yeah, that's absolutely. And it's been a real joy and a real pleasure seeing you, Paul. And, more power to your bow and your LB and so on. That'd be great. And you'll maybe play us out with something, Gary.
Well, finish with a reel. We'll finish with a Skinner tune. And I thought I'd play one of his concert pieces. This is a reel called The Hurricane. Thank you very much. It's been lovely to see you guys.
Absolutely great, Paul. And I'm sorry it's been so quick because we could spend hours and hours talking about this, but Scott Skinner and yourself and all that great music that our dancers dance to, and that's really important that they get to know the folks behind the tunes, which is terrific. So anyway, folks, in the meantime, until we meet again next month, and that'll be us more than halfway through the year. It's incredible already. So in the meantime, it's a cheerio from me and him.
And it's a cheerio from him and me.